In a world where everyone is pulling at your mind, your time, your energy, and your emotions, the greatest freedom you will ever give yourself is the power to detach. Most people don't realize this, but you are controlled the most by the things you cling to, the people you fear losing, the outcomes you obsess over, the situations you replay in your head long after they've moved on without you. Attachment is not love. It is dependence dressed as meaning. Machiavelli understood that the moment something becomes emotionally necessary to you, it becomes a handle by which you can be moved. Not by force, but by pressure. Not by attack, but by expectation. This is how power is stolen quietly. Every problem that consumes you does so because you have granted it mental residence. Every person who disturbs your peace does so because you have given them emotional access. The mind is a territory, and most men allow it to be occupied without resistance. Detachment is the act of reclaiming that territory. You stop fighting what you cannot command. You stop negotiating with reality. You step back, remove emotional weight, and watch clearly. When emotion leaves the equation, truth becomes visible. People expose themselves, situations reveal their limits, and you regain leverage without saying a word. This is not indifference. This is discipline. Masculine stoicism is not about feeling nothing. It is about refusing to be ruled by feeling. You decide what deserves your energy. Everything else is denied by silence. If this is resonating, comment, "Detachment is my freedom." Let that phrase mark the shift. This is Psygrythm. We don't chase control, we remove what controls us. Number 1. Withdrawal of attachment. Detachment begins when you understand a hard truth most people avoid. Your suffering is rarely caused by events themselves, but by your insistence that they should have unfolded differently. You replay conversations, you imagine alternate endings, you chase explanations that will never satisfy you. That mental friction is not accidental. It is the cost of attachment. And the cost is always paid in clarity. Machiavellian power does not come from controlling everything. It comes from refusing to be controlled by what cannot be controlled. The man who needs certainty becomes desperate. The man who needs validation becomes pliable. The man who needs outcomes becomes predictable. Predictability is the enemy of power. Detachment is not running away. It is stepping out of emotional contracts you never consciously signed. Contracts that say you must fix everyone, that you must be understood, that you must win every argument. These invisible obligations drain you because they are limitless. There is always another opinion, another demand, another crisis waiting to pull you back in. When you detach, you interrupt that loop. You stop feeding situations with urgency. You remove the emotional reward that keeps dysfunction alive. Most problems survive because someone keeps reacting to them. When reaction disappears, the problem either resolves itself or reveals that it was never yours to solve. This is where masculine stoicism becomes functional, not philosophical. You learn to separate observation from participation. You see what is happening without inserting yourself into it. You recognize manipulation without needing to expose it. You feel provocation without responding to it. This restraint is not passive, it is strategic. People will test this shift. When you withdraw attachment, those who benefited from your reactions will feel it immediately. They may escalate, they may guilt you, they may accuse you of changing. This is confirmation, not failure. The louder the resistance, the more necessary the detachment. Understand the psychology at work. When someone loses emotional access to you, they lose influence. Influence is what most people are really after, not connection. Detachment strips away false bonds and leaves only what is real. What remains after detachment is either respect or distance. Both outcomes serve you. You must also detach from outcomes. This is critical. Obsessing over results makes you rigid. Rigidity breaks under pressure. Power requires flexibility. You commit fully to your actions, but you release the need for specific rewards. This creates an internal advantage. You are effective without being desperate. The moment you stop needing things to go your way, your decision-making improves. You take cleaner risks. You speak less, but with more precision. You stop chasing approval and start choosing alignment. People sense this shift even if they can't explain it. Calm without need is intimidating. Detachment also sharpens your perception of time. You stop wasting it on arguments that go nowhere, relationships that extract without giving, and problems that recycle themselves endlessly. Time is not infinite. Machiavellian thinkers treat it as a weapon, not a resource to be spent emotionally. This does not mean isolation. It means selectivity. You choose where to invest attention, not where to react. You become difficult to provoke because provocation no longer offers a payoff. When nothing hooks you emotionally, manipulation loses its grip. Eventually, something subtle but irreversible happens. Your internal environment quiets, not because life is easier, but because you are no longer internally fighting what exists. That quiet is dangerous to those who rely on chaos to control you. Detachment is the midpoint between awareness and authority. It is where you stop being pulled and start standing still while the world moves around you. From here, your actions are deliberate, your silence is intentional, and your presence carries weight, because nothing owns you anymore. Number 2, the death of need. Detachment reaches its true depth when need dies. Not desire, not ambition, need. Most men never experience this state because they confuse wanting with requiring. They say they want respect, but they need approval. They say they want peace, but they need control over how others behave. That need is the chain, and chains don't have to be visible to be effective. Machiavelli understood that dependence is the oldest form of submission. The moment you require something from someone, emotionally, psychologically, or symbolically, you surrender leverage. Even if they appear weaker, even if they appear dependent on you. Need reverses power quietly. Look closely at your own reactions. Where do you feel anxiety when something is threatened? Where do you feel anger when something doesn't go your way? Where do you feel emptiness when someone pulls back? Those emotional spikes mark areas of attachment, and attachment marks areas where you can be moved. The dark psychology is simple. Whatever can disturb your inner state can be used against you. People don't need to defeat you. They only need to trigger you. Once triggered, you do the damage yourself. Overthinking, explaining, chasing, defending. All unnecessary, all costly. Detachment begins by stripping illusion from identity. You are not your role. You are not your relationship. You are not your reputation. These are external structures. Useful, yes, but replaceable. The man who fuses his identity to external structures becomes fragile. When those structures shake, he shakes with them. Masculine stoicism is not emotional numbness. It is emotional ownership. You feel, but you do not obey. You register emotion like data, not commands. Fear becomes information. Anger becomes a signal. Sadness becomes a temporary state, not a definition. Nothing is allowed to take the wheel. This is why detachment feels threatening to others. When you stop needing validation, flattery stops working. When you stop needing reassurance, manipulation fails. When you stop needing closure, control dissolves. You become harder to read, not because you hide, but because you are no longer leaking intention. Most people broadcast need constantly, in their tone, in their posture, in their urgency. They ask questions not to understand, but to secure certainty. They speak not to express truth, but to protect identity. This is why silence unsettles them. Silence reveals who is dependent on reaction. Detachment also requires letting go of imagined futures. The mind loves to project. It creates expectations, rehearses outcomes, builds emotional investments in scenarios that do not yet exist. When reality deviates, and it always does, frustration follows. The disciplined mind acts in the present and releases the future. Powerful men plan without attachment. They prepare without obsession. They move without emotional guarantees. This flexibility allows them to adapt when conditions change. The attached man breaks when the script fails. The detached man rewrites the script without hesitation. Another illusion must be destroyed: the belief that caring more gives you moral superiority. It does not. It gives you exposure. Caring without boundaries is self-betrayal. Machiavellian logic is not cruel. It is accurate. You cannot pour endlessly without being emptied, and empty men are easy to steer. Detachment teaches you to conserve energy. Not all battles deserve engagement. Not all people deserve explanation. Not all problems deserve attention. Selective investment is intelligence in action. You become ruthless not with others, but with your own focus. As need fades, something else grows. Internal gravity. You stop chasing, you stop convincing, you stop proving. Your presence becomes quieter, heavier. People feel it, but cannot name it. You are no longer reactive, so interactions slow down around you. That slowdown shifts power in your favor. This is why those who master detachment are often accused of being cold. In reality, they are simply not available for emotional extraction. They still act. They still choose. But their actions come from intention, not pressure. Detachment also dismantles fear of loss. Fear exists only where possession exists. If you believe something defines you, losing it terrifies you. When identity becomes internal, loss becomes transition. Pain may still occur, but panic disappears. And without panic, judgment remains intact. This state is not achieved overnight. It is trained. Every time you choose not to react, every time you let silence answer for you, every time you walk away without explanation, each decision weakens the old dependency loop. Eventually, you notice a shift. You are less exhausted, less mentally crowded, less reactive. You no longer feel pulled into every emotional current. Life still happens, but it happens around you, not inside you. This is the death of need, and in its place stands autonomy. Not arrogance, not isolation. Autonomy. From here, attachment becomes a choice, not a compulsion. Engagement becomes deliberate, and power, real power, emerges not from domination of others, but from independence from them. Number 3, silence, position, and invisibility. Detachment matures when silence becomes intentional, not the silence of fear, not the silence of avoidance, but the silence of position. Most men speak to be seen, to be acknowledged, to prove presence. Power does the opposite. Power waits. It lets others reveal themselves while it remains still. Silence is not the absence of action. It is the refinement of action. When you speak less, every word gains weight. When you react less, every movement gains meaning. Machiavelli knew that visibility invites interference. The more you explain, the more angles you expose. The more you justify, the more authority you surrender. The detached man understands something fundamental. Information flows toward the quiet observer. People talk when they feel unchallenged. They overshare when they sense no resistance. Silence becomes a mirror. Others project into it, filling the gap with their intentions, fears, and agendas. You learn more by withholding than by demanding. This is where detachment turns into leverage. You stop signaling urgency. You stop advertising desire. You stop broadcasting emotion. And because nothing leaks, nothing can be exploited. The world begins to adjust around you, unsure of your position, uncertain of your next move. Invisibility is misunderstood. It is not weakness. It is insulation. When you are not constantly asserting yourself, you are not constantly being tested. When you are not always present, your presence becomes significant. Scarcity applies not just to resources, but to attention. Most conflicts escalate because someone insists on being heard. Detachment ends escalation by removing the fuel. You don't need to win arguments to win outcomes. You don't need to be right to be effective. You only need to remain unhooked long enough for the other side to exhaust itself. Dark psychology operates on emotional hooks. Provocation is bait. Guilt is bait. Praise is bait. Detachment teaches you to recognize the hook before it sets. You pause. You don't bite. You don't even acknowledge the attempt. And without engagement, the tactic collapses. Positioning is the next layer. You don't place yourself where you must react. You choose environments that amplify your strengths and minimize unnecessary friction. This is not avoidance. It is architecture. You design your life so fewer things demand emotional response. The attached man adapts to chaos. The detached man designs around it. Positioning also applies socially. You stop explaining your boundaries. You enforce them through absence. You don't argue about respect. You remove access. Over time, people recalibrate how they treat you, not because you demanded it, but because you made disrespect costly. There is a psychological shift that happens when you stop chasing acknowledgement. You stop needing to be liked. You stop needing to be understood. And paradoxically, your presence becomes more compelling. People sense that you are not available for extraction. This creates tension. Tension creates interest. Interest creates influence. Influence without effort is the result of detachment done correctly. Invisibility also protects your strategy. When people don't know your intentions, they can't interfere. When they don't know your next move, they can't block it. Transparency is only virtuous when power is equal. Otherwise, it is exposure. Machiavellian thinking does not moralize reality, it observes it, and reality rewards those who keep their inner world private. You don't owe anyone access to your thoughts, plans, or emotional landscape. Privacy is not deception, it is self-preservation. Detachment also trains patience. You learn to wait without anxiety, to let timing work for you instead of rushing outcomes. Most mistakes are made under emotional pressure, fear of loss, fear of missing out, fear of being left behind. Detachment removes that pressure, allowing decisions to be made from clarity instead of urgency. Patience is not passivity, it is delayed aggression. You wait until conditions favor you, until information is complete, until leverage is clear. Then you move decisively, without hesitation or noise. The invisible man is underestimated. This is an advantage. When expectations are low, resistance is weak. When resistance is weak, movement is easy. Detachment allows you to operate beneath the emotional radar of others while building quietly. There is also a deeper internal benefit. Your nervous system stabilizes. You are no longer in constant alert mode. You are no longer scanning for threats that don't matter. This calm is not softness, it is readiness. When real challenges appear, you are not depleted by imaginary ones. Silence also exposes dependency in others. When you stop responding immediately, some people panic. They escalate. They seek reassurance, they push. This reveals who was feeding on your reactions. Detachment turns invisible dynamics visible. You begin to see patterns clearly. Who respects space, who demands attention, who collapses without validation. This information is invaluable. It allows you to choose alliances wisely and disengage cleanly. Detachment does not mean you disappear entirely. It means you appear on your terms. When you speak, it is intentional. When you engage, it is deliberate. When you withdraw, it is strategic. This balance, visibility and invisibility, creates authority. You are not always available, but you are always grounded. You are not loud, but you are felt. You are not reactive, but you are decisive. Over time, people stop trying to pull you into unnecessary conflict. They sense the cost. They sense the futility. Your calm becomes a boundary they don't cross. This is where detachment reshapes identity. You are no longer defined by roles, reactions, or relationships. You are defined by internal consistency, by self-command, by the ability to remain centered while others spin. Silence sharpens perception. Invisibility protects intention. Positioning creates advantage. Together, they form a state most men never reach: controlled presence. From here, detachment stops being a defensive act and becomes an offensive one, not against people, but against chaos itself. In the next section, this control will be directed outward, transforming detachment into quiet authority. Number 4, quiet authority. Authority does not announce itself. It settles into a room and changes the temperature. By the time most people realize it is there, it has already shaped the outcome. Detachment is what makes this possible. When you are no longer emotionally invested in being perceived a certain way, your presence becomes grounded, unmovable, and difficult to influence. Most men attempt to assert authority through force, through words, volume, explanations, or dominance displays. These tactics signal insecurity. They reveal a hunger to be recognized. Quiet authority works in reverse. It requires no validation because it is internally sourced. It does not seek approval because it does not fear disapproval. Detachment removes emotional desperation from your actions, and desperation is the single greatest threat to authority. The moment you need a reaction, you hand control to whoever withholds it. The moment you need agreement, you weaken your position. Quiet authority emerges when you act without requiring immediate confirmation. This is why emotionally detached individuals are often described as intense or hard to read. What people are really sensing is self-command. There is no emotional leakage, no urgency, no need to fill silence. The mind remains still, and stillness draws attention. In Machiavellian terms, authority comes from asymmetry. When others react and you do not, the balance shifts. When others explain and you remain concise, the hierarchy clarifies. When others chase resolution and you allow time to pass, leverage moves toward you. Time is an authority amplifier. Those who can wait without agitation gain advantage over those who rush to relieve discomfort. Detachment trains you to tolerate uncertainty, to sit in unresolved space without flinching. This tolerance becomes dominance in negotiations, conflicts, and relationships. Quiet authority also reshapes how you speak. You stop over-communicating. You stop defending your decisions. You stop narrating your reasoning. You state what is necessary and let reality handle the rest. People either adjust or remove themselves. Both outcomes strengthen your position. This does not make you cruel, it makes you clear. Clarity is often mistaken for coldness by those who benefited from your confusion. When you detach from the need to be liked, you gain the ability to be respected. Respect grows where boundaries are consistent and consequences are implied, not threatened. Dark psychology reveals an uncomfortable truth. People follow emotional stability more than moral arguments. They align with those who seem unshaken. Detachment creates that signal. You appear reliable not because you promise support, but because you are not easily destabilized. Quiet authority also protects you from emotional manipulation. Guilt loses its grip when you are not trying to be perceived as good. Praise loses its power when you are not trying to be admired. Fear loses its hold when you are not clinging to outcomes. Detachment neutralizes these levers. Another shift occurs internally. You stop identifying with every challenge. Not every disagreement is a threat. Not every obstacle requires confrontation. Not every loss is failure. Detachment gives you perspective, and perspective dissolves impulsive reactions. This allows you to choose your battles with precision. You engage only where influence is possible and cost is justified. You disengage where energy would be wasted. Over time, others learn that when you do engage, it matters. Your involvement signals importance. Quiet authority also redefines leadership. Leadership is not constant presence. It is decisive intervention. You don't micromanage. You don't hover. You let systems function until correction is required. This creates respect and self-sufficiency around you. People begin to self-regulate in your presence, not out of fear, but out of awareness. They sense that emotional theatrics will not move you, only clarity and substance will. This raises the quality of interaction automatically. There is also a personal benefit. Your internal world becomes less reactive and more intentional. You are not dragged into emotional spirals. You are not exhausted by unnecessary engagement. Your energy is conserved and directed. This conservation compounds. Over time, your calm becomes a reputation. Your restraint becomes expected. Others adjust their behavior preemptively. Influence grows without effort. Quiet authority is also adaptive. It does not rely on rigid rules. It responds to context. Detachment allows you to read situations without emotional distortion. You see patterns, not provocations. You respond strategically, not reflexively. This is the difference between appearing powerful and being powerful. Appearance requires constant maintenance. Being requires alignment. Detachment aligns your actions with your internal priorities rather than external pressure. The man with quiet authority does not chase control. He creates conditions where control is unnecessary. He does not demand respect. He becomes difficult to disrespect. He does not seek dominance. He becomes the reference point. Detachment also shields you from resentment. When expectations are released, disappointment fades. You stop feeling betrayed by others' behavior because you no longer base your stability on their choices. This emotional independence strengthens authority further. Eventually, you notice something subtle. Fewer people challenge you, not because you are aggressive, but because challenge feels pointless. There is nothing to push against, nothing to provoke, nothing to manipulate. Quiet authority is the natural outcome of disciplined detachment. It is not taught loudly. It is not displayed theatrically. It is sensed. Number 5. Pressure reveals command. Pressure is the great exposer. It strips away performance and reveals command. Anyone can appear detached when conditions are favorable. True detachment is tested when stakes rise, when emotions surge, when others attempt to force reaction. This is where most men fail, not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack internal governance. Under pressure, the attached mind tightens, it rushes, it seeks certainty, it looks for allies, reassurance, and immediate relief. This urgency is visible, and visibility invites exploitation. Those who remain composed under pressure reverse the dynamic. They do not chase stability, they become it. Machiavellian power thrives in moments of tension. Conflict creates imbalance. Imbalance creates opportunity. The detached man does not rush to restore harmony. He allows discomfort to exist, because discomfort weakens those who cannot tolerate it. While others scramble to regain emotional footing, he observes. Detachment under pressure requires one skill above all others: emotional delay. You feel the surge, anger, fear, frustration, but you do not act on it immediately. You create space between impulse and decision. In that space, clarity forms. Most mistakes are made when that space collapses. When confronted, you do not explain. When accused, you do not defend reflexively. When provoked, you do not retaliate. This does not mean you accept injustice. It means you refuse to fight on terms designed to destabilize you. You choose timing. You choose terrain. Pressure tactics rely on speed. Guilt wants immediate response. Threats want immediate submission. Drama wants immediate engagement. Detachment denies immediacy. Time becomes your ally. Delay becomes resistance. Silence becomes strength. There is a psychological asymmetry here. The person applying pressure is often more invested in the outcome than the one receiving it. They need resolution. They need reaction. They need compliance. When you remain unmoved, the imbalance shifts. The one who needs less controls more. Under pressure, people reveal patterns. Some escalate, some retreat, some attempt to charm, some attempt to intimidate. Detachment allows you to read these patterns without being consumed by them. Information accumulates, leverage grows. This is where masculine stoicism shows its edge. You do not deny emotion, you master it. You allow the body to feel stress while the mind remains steady. Breath slows. Posture remains open. Voice remains measured. These physical cues signal command, not to intimidate but to stabilize. Stability is magnetic in chaos. Others begin to defer without being asked. Decisions gravitate toward you, not because you demand authority, but because you are the only one not unraveling. Detachment under pressure creates natural leadership. There is also an internal test. Pressure will tempt you to abandon detachment for relief, to explain just to end tension, to concede just to restore calm, to lash out just to feel powerful. These are traps. Short-term relief costs long-term position. The disciplined man tolerates discomfort to protect alignment. He accepts temporary tension to preserve long-term authority. He understands that reacting emotionally may feel good for a moment, but it weakens structure. Detachment also prevents identity collapse under pressure. When you are not fused to roles or outcomes, challenges do not feel like personal threats. Criticism becomes data, failure becomes feedback, loss becomes recalibration. You remain intact. This is why detached men recover faster. They do not spiral, they adjust. They do not internalize chaos, they reorganize around it. Pressure becomes a tool rather than a threat. Eventually, others learn something important about you. Pressure does not move you. Emotional leverage does not work. Time-based manipulation fails. This reputation alone deters future attempts. Detachment compounds. Pressure reveals who commands themselves. Self-command establishes authority. Authority shapes outcomes. Number 6. Detachment from desire and success. Most men believe detachment is only necessary when things go wrong. That is a mistake. The most dangerous form of attachment forms when things go right. Success creates illusion. Momentum creates arrogance. Desire creates blindness. This is where power quietly slips away from those who think they've already won. Machiavelli warned indirectly of this trap. Fortune favors the disciplined, but destroys the complacent. When you attach your identity to progress, praise, or achievement, you become vulnerable at the peak. Desire narrows perception. It convinces you that what feels good must be protected at all costs, that protection turns into fear. Fear turns into hesitation. Hesitation invites loss. Detachment from desire does not mean lack of ambition. It means ambition without intoxication. You pursue goals, but you do not merge with them. You advance, but you do not cling. The moment success becomes part of who you are, rather than something you do, it gains the power to destabilize you. Look closely at how men fall, rarely at the bottom. They fall when they start defending a position instead of improving it, when they fear losing status more than they value clarity, when they protect image instead of structure. Attachment to success creates fragility. The detached man treats success as terrain, not identity. Terrain changes, conditions shift. What works today may fail tomorrow. He remains adaptable because his self-worth is not welded to outcomes. He is willing to abandon strategies, relationships, even identities that no longer serve direction. Desire also distorts judgment. It makes you rush timelines. It makes you ignore warning signs. It makes you justify compromises that weaken long-term position. Detachment restores objectivity. You can want deeply without becoming blind. You can pursue intensely without becoming reckless. There is a subtle psychological danger here. When things are going well, emotional discipline erodes. You relax boundaries. You talk more. You reveal plans. You trust signals instead of patterns. This is how influence leaks away. Detachment must remain strongest when comfort increases. Powerful men remain internally cold even while externally successful. Not joyless, controlled. They enjoy progress without being ruled by it. They celebrate without loosening grip. They understand that fortune tests discipline more severely than adversity. Detachment from desire also applies to recognition. Praise is seductive. It conditions behavior. It trains you to repeat what earns approval rather than what advances position. Over time, this creates dependence on validation. The detached man listens to feedback without chasing applause. This independence is unsettling to others. When you are not motivated by praise, you cannot be steered by it. When you are not afraid of losing favor, you cannot be threatened with withdrawal. Detachment here protects sovereignty. Another illusion must be dismantled: the belief that more is always better. More money, more influence, more visibility. Growth without detachment leads to overextension. Overextension creates exposure. Exposure invites collapse. Detachment enforces selectivity. You do not pursue every opportunity. You choose those aligned with long-term structure. You do not respond to every invitation. You protect your rhythm. Discipline over indulgence. Direction over excitement. There is also detachment from momentum. Momentum feels powerful, but it can carry you into traps. The disciplined man pauses even while winning. He audits position. He reassesses alliances. He checks assumptions. Detachment allows course correction without ego. This is where masculine stoicism reveals its maturity. You do not become intoxicated by progress. You remain internally neutral, calm in loss, calm in gain. This neutrality is not indifference, it is balance. Balance sustains longevity. Most men burn out because they attach emotionally to pace. They feel guilty slowing down. They equate rest with weakness. Detachment allows strategic withdrawal without self-judgment. You rest when needed. You advance when conditions favor you. Desire also creates comparison. Comparison breeds insecurity. Insecurity invites reaction. Detachment ends this cycle. You stop measuring yourself against others. You measure alignment instead. Are your actions consistent with your principles? Are you moving toward autonomy or away from it? This internal metric is stabilizing. It prevents ego inflation and ego collapse. You remain centered regardless of external noise. Praise does not lift you. Criticism does not sink you. Both pass through without distortion. Detachment from success also protects relationships. When you do not need others to affirm your worth, interactions become cleaner. You do not tolerate exploitation disguised as loyalty. You do not cling to alliances out of nostalgia. You choose association based on mutual respect and trajectory. There is a cost to this discipline. Some will accuse you of being distant. Others will say you've changed. They are correct. Detachment changes you. It removes emotional dependency. It replaces it with intention. Not everyone benefits from this shift. The detached man accepts this without bitterness. He understands that evolution filters environments. What remains after detachment is what can stand without emotional subsidy. This clarity simplifies life. Desire will always exist. Ambition will always pull. The goal is not elimination, but command. You hold desire like a tool, not like a master. You can set it down. You can redirect it. You are not compelled. When detachment is applied to success, ambition becomes sustainable. You are no longer chasing highs or avoiding lows. You are building structure. Structure outlives emotion. This is where long-term power is forged, not in intensity but in consistency, not in hunger but in restraint, not in attachment but in alignment. Number 7. The internal sovereign. The final battlefield is not people, not situations, not outcomes. It is your own mind. Most men believe detachment ends when they stop reacting outwardly. That is only the surface. True detachment begins when you stop being ruled by your thoughts. Thoughts are not truth. They are impulses wrapped in language. And if you obey them automatically, you are not free. You are governed by internal noise. Machiavelli understood power as command. Command over others begins with command over self, and command over self begins with mental sovereignty. The mind must become territory you govern, not terrain you wander helplessly. Thoughts will arise. They always do. Doubt, fear, anger, desire, memory, projection. Most people treat these as orders. They identify with them. They follow them. That is internal submission. Detachment teaches you to observe thought without obedience. You do not argue with thoughts. You do not suppress them. You do not indulge them. You watch them pass. This distance creates a quiet but absolute shift. The thought loses authority the moment it is seen as separate from the self. You are no longer inside the thought. You are above it. This elevation is power. Dark psychology reveals that people are controlled not by reality, but by the stories they repeat internally. Stories of victimhood, stories of entitlement, stories of fear, stories of imagined futures. These narratives generate emotion. Emotion drives behavior. Behavior determines position. Detach from the story, and the chain breaks. Most internal suffering is rehearsal. You replay conversations. You anticipate betrayal. You imagine failure. None of it is happening, yet your nervous system responds as if it is. This drains energy and distorts judgment. Detachment ends rehearsal. The disciplined mind returns to what is, not what might be. Presence is not spiritual, it is tactical. When the mind is present, perception sharpens, reaction slows, choice expands. This is why masters of power appear calm, not because they lack pressure, but because their thoughts do not rule them. They experience mental events without becoming them. Internal sovereignty requires one core discipline: non-identification. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your impulses. These are tools, signals, data. When anger arises, you do not become angry, you note anger. When fear arises, you do not retreat, you assess threat. When desire arises, you do not chase, you evaluate cost. This separation creates control. Most men collapse internally before they collapse externally. They decide they are defeated before reality confirms it. Detachment prevents premature surrender. You remain operational even under internal pressure. Another trap must be dismantled: the need to resolve every thought. The mind seeks closure. It wants answers. It wants certainty. This creates loops: overthinking, rumination, obsession. Detachment allows unresolved thoughts to exist without action. You do not need mental closure to move forward. You need direction. Direction comes from values, not moods. Values are chosen. Moods fluctuate. Detachment anchors behavior to principle rather than feeling. This creates consistency. Consistency builds power. Internal sovereignty also means refusing to argue internally with imagined opponents. Most mental conflict is fictional. You debate people who are not present. You defend positions that were never attacked. You prepare speeches no one asked for. This is wasted force. The detached mind does not perform internally. It conserves energy. Silence must exist inside as well as outside. Not total silence, but reduced noise. Fewer unnecessary thoughts. Less internal commentary, more observation. This internal quiet amplifies awareness. With awareness comes choice. With choice comes freedom. Freedom is not doing what you want. Freedom is not being compelled. There is also detachment from internal praise and self-criticism. Both are forms of identification. Praise inflates ego. Criticism collapses it. The sovereign mind acknowledges performance without merging with it. You did well, you did poorly. Neither defines you. This neutrality stabilizes identity. You remain grounded regardless of outcome. This is rare, and rarity creates influence. Internal detachment also dismantles fear of judgment. Judgment exists only when identity is externalized. When self-worth is internal, opinions lose gravity. You hear them, you weigh them, you are not moved by them. This does not make you arrogant. It makes you autonomous. Autonomy allows you to act cleanly. You speak when necessary. You act when aligned. You withdraw when strategic. You are no longer compelled by internal pressure to prove, defend, or explain. Thoughts will still attempt to provoke you. Old patterns will resurface. This is normal. Detachment is not elimination, it is management. You notice the pattern. You refuse to follow it. Over time, the pattern weakens. Neural pathways decay when not used. Emotional habits dissolve when not reinforced. Detachment rewires the mind through non-participation. This is how internal transformation actually occurs, not through force, but through refusal. Eventually, a profound shift occurs. You no longer feel crowded inside. The mind becomes spacious. Calm does not require effort. Focus becomes natural. You are no longer fighting yourself. This internal order radiates outward. Others sense it. They feel less need to test you, less need to provoke, less need to dominate. Your presence communicates self-command without declaration. This is the final layer of detachment, inner command. When thoughts do not rule you, people cannot rule you. When emotions do not drive you, situations cannot trap you. When identity is internal, outcomes cannot destabilize you. You become internally ungovernable, and an ungovernable man is not chaotic. He is precise. Number 8. Untouchable composure. Untouchable composure is not calmness for show. It is calmness under ownership. This is the state where detachment is no longer something you do. It is something you are. Nothing needs to be forced. Nothing needs to be proven. Your inner world has structure, and that structure does the work for you. People feel it. Situations adjust to it. Pressure dissolves against it. Most men mistake composure for politeness. They soften their tone, suppress emotion, smile through discomfort. That is not composure. That is containment without command. Untouchable composure is different. It is not gentle. It is grounded. It does not appease. It stabilizes. This composure is built by stacking every form of detachment you've learned so far. Detachment from people, from outcomes, from desire, from pressure, from thought, and letting them converge into one operating state. When these layers align, you stop oscillating internally. You become consistent, and consistency is power. The uncomposed man is easy to move. His mood shifts with the room. His confidence rises and falls with feedback. His decisions change under stress. He reacts before he thinks. Even when he appears confident, it is fragile. It depends on conditions. Untouchable composure does not depend on conditions. It remains intact when challenged, criticized, ignored, praised, delayed, or denied. Not because nothing matters, but because you decide what matters. This decision-making authority is internal. It cannot be taken. Dark psychology reveals that emotional volatility invites dominance. Those who cannot regulate themselves invite regulation by others. When your internal state is stable, attempts to provoke you fail. Attempts to rush you stall. Attempts to manipulate you bounce off without friction. This is why composed men are rarely targeted directly. There is nothing to grab, no visible lever, no emotional edge. Aggression seeks reaction. Composure denies it. Untouchable composure also eliminates the need to posture. You don't display strength. You don't signal status. You don't announce boundaries. You don't perform masculinity. You embody alignment. Others adjust without instruction. This embodiment has a physical component. Your breath remains steady under stress. Your posture does not collapse under scrutiny. Your movements are deliberate, not rushed. Your voice does not rise to fill silence. These signals communicate command at a subconscious level. You are not trying to dominate the room. You are anchoring it. Anchors do not move. The environment moves around them. This composure changes how conflict unfolds. You no longer feel the urge to win emotionally. You are not offended easily. You do not personalize resistance. You see opposition as information. You respond with precision, not ego. When someone challenges you, you don't escalate. You clarify. When someone disrespects you, you don't lecture. You adjust access. When someone tests you, you don't react. You observe. This restraint confuses those who rely on emotional scripts. They expect defensiveness. They expect anger. They expect explanation. When none arrives, they lose footing. Power shifts quietly. Untouchable composure also redefines patience. You are no longer waiting anxiously. You are waiting strategically. You allow time to reveal leverage. You let others exhaust themselves. You do not rush resolution to relieve discomfort. This patience is not passive. It is active containment. You hold position while variables settle. You move only when clarity peaks. This timing advantage compounds over time. There is also detachment from urgency. Urgency is often manufactured. Deadlines are emotional weapons. Pressure is applied to force suboptimal decisions. The composed man slows everything down internally, even when externally fast-paced. You can act decisively without being hurried. You can move quickly without being rushed. That distinction matters. Untouchable composure also protects you from internal sabotage. Old fears may surface, doubts may arise, but they no longer hijack behavior. You feel them without obeying them. This creates reliability. You trust yourself under stress. Self-trust is rare, and where it exists, others follow. This composure changes your relationship with loss. Loss no longer collapses identity. It becomes adjustment. Pain may still exist, but panic disappears. Without panic, recovery accelerates. Without emotional collapse, momentum is preserved. You also stop overcorrecting. Many men react to mistakes with excess, over-apologizing, over-explaining, overcompensating. Composure allows proportional response. You correct what matters. You ignore what doesn't. You move forward cleanly. There is a psychological intimidation in this, not fear-based intimidation, but certainty-based intimidation. Others sense that emotional tactics will not work. They approach with substance or not at all. Untouchable composure also sharpens your moral clarity. When emotion no longer clouds judgment, values become visible. You know what you will and won't do. You don't rationalize weakness. You don't compromise structure for comfort. This clarity simplifies decisions. Complexity decreases when emotional noise fades. You stop negotiating internally. You act in alignment. This alignment reduces friction. Reduced friction increases efficiency. Over time, this state becomes your baseline. You are not constantly self-regulating. You are regulated. Calm is not something you return to. It is where you operate from. This is why composure is exhausting for those who don't have it. They burn energy managing emotion. You conserve energy directing intention. The gap widens. Untouchable composure also transforms ambition. You no longer chase with desperation. You advance with inevitability. You don't force outcomes. You position for them. When opportunity appears, you are ready without frenzy. Others mistake this for luck. It is not luck. It is preparedness without anxiety. This state also attracts projection. People will assign motives to you. They will assume arrogance, indifference, superiority. These projections are irrelevant. They reveal more about the observer than the observed. Composure allows you to let misunderstanding exist without correction. You do not need to be accurately perceived to be effective. At this level, detachment is complete. Not because you feel nothing, but because nothing owns you. Your emotions are yours. Your thoughts are yours. Your time is yours. Your direction is yours. This is what it means to be untouchable, not invulnerable, but ungovernable. Number 9, the untouchable code, expanded. This is not a lesson, it is a line you cross. From here on, you stop asking how to control people, problems, or situations. That question belongs to those still trapped in reaction. The untouchable man operates by a higher rule. Nothing external is allowed to dictate his internal state. This single principle dismantles manipulation at the root. When nothing outside you can shake what's inside you, control becomes irrelevant. Detachment at this level is no longer something you practice consciously. It is integrated, automatic. You don't pause to remind yourself not to react. You simply don't. The impulse still appears, but it no longer commands. You have rewired the chain between stimulus and response. Most people live as if the world has permission to reach inside them at any moment. A message, a tone, a delay, a look, a loss, everything is allowed to enter and disturb their inner order. That is psychological exposure, and exposure always leads to exploitation, whether intentional or not. The untouchable code seals that exposure. You still experience emotion, but emotion no longer owns territory. Anger arises, but it does not dictate behavior. Fear appears, but it does not rush decisions. Desire pulls, but it does not hijack direction. You feel fully, yet act selectively. This distinction separates men who survive from men who dominate their own lives. At this stage, you stop explaining yourself, not out of arrogance, but out of clarity. Explanation is often a request for validation disguised as communication. When your actions are aligned, explanation becomes unnecessary. Those who understand will recognize it. Those who don't were never entitled to access anyway. You also stop chasing closure. Closure is a psychological addiction. It promises peace, but delivers dependence. The untouchable man lets time close doors without commentary. Silence replaces confrontation. Absence replaces argument. Distance replaces resentment. This is not avoidance. It is resolution without negotiation. Another shift occurs here, one that most men never reach. You stop equating engagement with importance. You understand that attention is currency, and you stop spending it emotionally on what does not compound. Not every provocation deserves response. Not every problem deserves focus. Not every relationship deserves continuation. Selection becomes ruthless, but not emotional. You engage where there is alignment. You disengage where there is extraction. No speeches, no ultimatums, just consistent behavior. This consistency is what makes you untouchable. People cannot predict emotional reactions from you anymore. They cannot bait you into impulsive decisions. They cannot rush you into false urgency. You operate on your timeline, from your center. The untouchable code also redefines masculinity. It is no longer loud, reactive, or performative. It is restrained, grounded, economical. Masculine stoicism is not about suppressing feeling. It is about refusing to outsource self-command to feeling. You don't need to prove strength. You demonstrate it through restraint. Over time, something becomes obvious. Fewer people attempt to test you. Not because you are intimidating, but because there is no reward in doing so. Emotional tactics fail. Power games collapse. Drama starves. Your calm becomes a boundary no one crosses casually. This is where dark psychology turns inward and becomes protection. You understand how manipulation works, not to use it, but to render it ineffective. Guilt cannot move you when your values are internal. Praise cannot steer you when your direction is fixed. Fear cannot control you when loss no longer threatens identity. Identity is the final seal. You are no longer defined by roles, relationships, outcomes, or reputation. These are external structures, useful, temporary, replaceable. Your identity is internal. Discipline, clarity, self-command. Because it lives inside you, it cannot be taken away. This is why the untouchable man recovers faster. Failure does not shatter him. Loss does not disorient him. He adjusts, recalibrates, and moves forward without emotional collapse. Others burn energy grieving what they lost. He reallocates energy building what comes next. The code also simplifies life. When emotional noise fades, decisions become cleaner. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop second-guessing aligned choices. You stop living in mental rehearsal. Action becomes quiet and precise. You do not rush. You do not freeze. You move when it is time. This rhythm is dangerous in a world addicted to urgency. Urgency is how people are controlled. Deadlines become threats. Expectations become pressure. Detachment removes urgency from the nervous system. You can act decisively without being hurried. You can wait patiently without anxiety. That internal stillness is power. And here is the part most people misunderstand. Being untouchable does not make you cold. It makes you selective. You still care, but only where care produces strength, not weakness. You still connect, but without dependency. You still love,